Howdy folks, you're watching Deuce. Today we're going to talk about the Charlie Kirk shooting. Now I am not a political commentator, nor am I good at reading the news to the camera. There are many YouTubers who do that phenomenally well. I'm not one of them. But what I do know is guns and shooting. And I've been asked by a lot of people the details about the shot that took out Charlie Kirk and the type of rifle used. So let's talk about that. The instant I heard that shot on the video, I knew that it was a high caliber weapon, probably a bolt action rifle, probably a deer rifle, a deer hunting cartridge. This was not 5.56. This was definitely a 308, 30-06, 6.5 Creedmoor, something of that nature. And it turns out I was probably correct. The length of the shot was roughly 200 yards, and it was a cold bore, first shot, one shot. And that would not have been an easy shot. Personally, the only rifle I have ready to go that would be able to make a shot like that is this Thompson Center that I've done a ton of work on. It has a nice scope. It is chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, which is inherently a very accurate cartridge. And I have a nice Harris bipod that can be adjusted for cant to work with whatever environment I find myself in, not just at the shooting range. Per a little bit of leaked information I've seen so far, this is very similar to what was probably used, except it was made by Mauser. And yes, that is the same Mauser that made rifles that look like this. But they also had a whole commercial line of rifles that were imported later on to the United States, and I'm pretty sure that's what was used in this shooting. The leaked report also mentioned that it was 30-06. Well, the only modern 30-06 rifle I have is this Weatherby Vanguard, which is very similar to what Mauser was importing back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And they had scope mounts, and usually it was a wooden stock, not a polymer stock, of course, but they had the cheek comb and everything, just like this Vanguard does. I don't shoot this rifle very often because I'm a suppressor nerd, and I bought this before I had suppressors, so it's not threaded for that. I do need to get it threaded because this is too good of a rifle just to be sitting in my safe. But just like the assailant's weapon, this does shoot the 30-06 round. This is for my M1 Garand. Here's a close-up of that 30-06 round right there. The name means basically 30 caliber bullet, and it was designed in 1906, 30-06. I did a similar video last year when Trump got shot, but in that case, it was a 5.56 round. And in comparison, that is the 30-06. Quite a big difference. This one takes down a deer very easily. 5.56 oftentimes isn't even legal for use on deer hunts. I've not seen a picture of the rifle just yet, but the leaked info says it's an older model Mauser chambered in 30-06, which would be very similar to this, of course. Some of those rifles were converted from World War II rifles, rebarreled and rechambered to 30-06, and drilled for scope mounts. And some of them were commercially made products. We don't know which one is which as far as what the shooter used. So it could have been a commercially made rifle that was imported through usually like Century International Arms. They imported a ton of them, but they also imported some of the converted rifles as well. While editing this video, they released a picture of the rifle, and it's way more modern than I thought it would be. I'm used to the curio relic, very old stuff from World War II and things of that nature. I was wrong. It's actually a modern Mauser pretty much for the most part. Has a polymer stock on it, a nice scope, and of course it is chambered in 30-06. So it is almost identical to this Weatherby. I'm going to go ahead and take this bolt completely out here. The assailant had 3 rounds left in the internal magazine and 1 spent cartridge still in the chamber. He never unchambered that round. Now, normally they hold 5 rounds of 30-06. Now, of course, I've removed the bolt for safety because these are live rounds. So 1, 2, and just like any Mauser-based firearm action, is loaded through the top and not through the bottom, say like a AR-15 or something of that nature, or M14. That last round is kind of sticky, if I remember correctly, in this rifle. There we go. So it holds barely 5 rounds. So more than likely, maybe the shooter had some issues getting that 5th round in and left it with 4 rounds. maybe he only had 4 rounds, or maybe it could be a model of Mauser that only held 4 rounds of .30-06. Who knows? But again, we'll find that out later when more details are available. A lot of people have also been asking me about the quality of shooter. How good of a shot would you have to be to make that 200-yard shot? Would you have to be a sniper and shoot an actual sniper rifle? Which, yes, this is an official Russian Mosin Nagant that was designated a sniper rifle. I would not take this one into battle, even though it shoots pretty well. The Mosin Nagants, even the sniper variants, only shot maybe 3-inch MOA, which is pretty pathetic when compared to a modern rifle. So I do not think that the shooter necessarily had to be some sort of operator, some sort of sniper, anything of that nature, but they did have to be a pretty good shot, and I'll tell you why. First of all, 200 yards. 200 yards is a good distance. I mean, go to your shooting range, look at a target that's 200 yards out there. That's pretty far. You think about maybe like a full-size watermelon at 200 yards. I mean, that's going to be smaller. You're going to be covering it up with your thumb at arm's length. The shooter more than likely had some good trigger time behind a rifle, probably even that particular rifle they used that day. So while 200 yards was a difficult shot, it would not necessarily need an operator, a sniper, or someone who was trained in the armed forces to make that shot. A competent hunter could have made that shot with the correct gear. And that correct gear would be basically a decent hunting rifle and a decent scope attached to it with some trigger time behind there to get it dialed in for a cold bore shot. And that is pretty important because I was explaining this to my wife earlier today. If I took my wife down to the shooting range and set her up with this rifle or my 6.5 Creedmoor rifle, gave her an entire box of ammo, she would eventually hit that target at 200 yards. And she has no experience with a rifle whatsoever. But the cold bore shot is hard to anticipate because it is going to be different than all the subsequent rounds after that. So you're going to need that rifle set up for the one-shot cold bore shot, which basically means the barrel has not been heated up by previous firings. It's completely cold, not been shot that day, and you know where that bullet's going to hit because you've sighted that scope in for that particular shot. Not the warm bore shots, which basically, after you fire some rounds, the barrel will kind of settle down and get more and more accurate as it heats up to its operating temperature, which is great when you're at the shooting range, just firing some rounds downrange at paper. But when you're hunting, you want to set up your rifle for the first shot, the one shot that would take down your deer, which would be the cold bore shot. Again, it's not the most accurate that rifle can shoot because they shoot much better once the barrel's been warmed up. There was also the fact that it was not at a normal shooting range. It was not at a comfortable way to shoot. The person had to run across a rooftop apparently and shoot from a roof, which would not have been conducive to a good shooting experience, which is kind of the name of the game when you're about to commit an atrocity. In conclusion, I don't think this was a sniper using a real sniper rifle. I don't think it was some sort of operator completing some clandestine operation. I think it was someone who has some trigger time, been hunting a few times, was a decent shot, maybe got a little bit lucky on top of that, and decided to use that skills and probably grandpa's old rifle to commit a horrific atrocity. And I hope they come to judgment soon. Well, guys, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like and subscribe. A lot more is on the way. I will try to leave details as more details come out in the comments down below. I encourage you to keep up and maybe even add your own information once it comes available. As always, you guys have a great day. See ya.